The Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 5, titled Internment. This episode gave us the end of the flu, pretty much. They came back with the cure at the end of the episode, but before that, we had a lot of good drama. Things were getting really, really intense in that last, I guess, like the last, 15 minutes or so of the episode. The gate comes down, Rick and Carl have to shoot off zombies with assault rifles, and then while that's happening, you know, like 4 or 5 people have died and become zombies inside, death row. And Herschel has to go around protecting people. Glenn passes out, so we have to freak out whether or not he's gonna die. Fortunately, of course, he doesn't. Fortunately, none of the main people do. Sasha, survives as well. But they have all random people we don't know. They just all die off, aside from the guy who in last week's episode who just coughed right on Herschel. But it was a really good episode. It had some pretty interesting lessons in it too. And we also got the answer to, what is Rick gonna say to the group when he returns, after the whole Carol thing. And the first person he talks to, Maggie, he just tells the truth. He says she's the one who killed those people, and that was pretty much it. I didn't want her around. I had to let her, go off on her own. And what was really good about that scene is that right after he says, I let her go, he turns around and then he stops and he says, would you have let her go? Because, he's in that point, which we've seen, this whole season. He's not, the leader Rick. He's the guy who makes a decision, for himself and what he feels is right, but he doesn't want to be the one to make decisions for everyone. So it was pretty cool to see him ask Maggie, would you have, sent her off? And so far, he does at least have one person on his side for sure. But we still have to kind of wait and see for next week. Once everyone else finds out, who's going to be on his side and, who's going to be mad at him. Especially with Daryl, I think that's what everyone wants to know is, what's Daryl going to do and, what's he going to say. And who knows, maybe he'll run off and try to find Carol just like Michonne was looking for the governor. But excited to see where that goes for, next week if they really focus on it based off of, the ending for this episode. But I'll get to that. But everything was really well done. It was pretty much all in death row, which I kind of enjoyed because we got to see the inside, pretty much the entire episode, which we didn't see. Was generally if this character went to check up on someone, we got to see, maybe 5 minutes or so where they're like, okay, I can see this or see that, and how's it been? And then whoever that other main character was that's in there, we get a little bit of footage on the inside. But pretty much this entire episode was inside of death row with people, dying and people having to run in, like at the end when Maggie had to run in to save everyone. Well, she didn't really save everyone, but she did save Herschel, because if she wasn't there, he, who knows what could have happened. I mean, he had already fallen because, it was like just a net, so it was hard to just stand up for him. But it was great to, have her come in, and it was such a small lesson, but in the beginning of the episode when she talks to Rick and says, I don't know if I would have been able to let, Carol go. Rick says, you shouldn't doubt yourself. You've done tougher things. And that was, it was the smallest little lesson, but it did actually carry throughout the episode. And she doesn't doubt herself in the end after Herschel says, don't shoot because you might hit the bag. And, instead of doubting herself, she takes charge and she pulls the trigger and she kills the zombie without, hitting the bag. So that was really cool to see. Just like a minor bit of development, but it was pretty cool because we don't get much for Maggie, I feel. At least we certainly haven't in this season at all. But, it's only been a couple of episodes and it's really just been, we gotta run and, get stuff. So that makes sense. But it was good to have, that little bit of development where we see she doesn't doubt herself as much, especially when it, really, when it really counts. So that was important to see. But love the episode. The ending, like I said, very intense. I didn't know if Herschel was gonna live. I figured Glenn would live, but I was really freaking out. Like, I don't know, who's gonna get bit. When the one guy came out with the gun, I thought, okay, he's gonna save Herschel, and then he stopped because the woman came out. I was like, okay, well, they did that, and then like his brother or whoever the other zombie was, bites him on the arm, and then he shoots the woman by accident and kills her, and that really caught me by surprise. I was like, man, that really sucks. But that was a good scene too. It just, it shocked me. I was like, wow, he killed her by accident. He turned into a zombie, and of course she became one too, unless she just didn't die. But she did. She became a zombie. But it was a good scene. Herschel had to deal with some stuff in this episode too, like when he first killed the first person that turned after right before Rick saw him. He had to deal with deciding whether or not he still believes there's a plan and stuff, and they really got into his religion and stuff, which they haven't for basically two whole seasons, because last season, from what I remember, there wasn't too much about his religion and things like that, but they really got into it at least a little bit in this episode, where he does still believe that there's a plan, there's things are going according to plan, I guess, because of God. But he has to make a decision, and he makes the first decision when he kills that zombie there. But at the end of the episode, before he shoots the zombie on the stairs, he looks at the kids and he decides, I still don't want them to see what's going on, even though they know. I don't want them to have that actual image in their head. So it was cool to see him, even though he was in that intense situation, he decided, I still have the time, because they're slow walking zombies, but I still have the time to basically drag them off into this corner so the kids won't see me just like blowing zombies' heads off and stuff. So it was cool to see he changed a little, and just in the fact that he had to kill the zombies before they changed, but at the same time he was still himself, and he wanted to keep people from seeing what he had to do whenever he could help it. So it was a great episode. And everything overall I thought was really well done. I love Rick and Carl, working together. Rick was worrying about pretty much everything, and then once stuff kind of went crazy, he told Meg, go ahead, and he decided to trust his son. And in the part when they have to start shooting up the zombies and stuff, he kind of looks at him at that one point after he like basically saves him when the zombie grabs him, and he's kind of looking at him like he's worried again that this one moment, because it's just so much adrenaline, it might just drive him back to being Killer Carl pretty much. But I think he's gonna be okay, but we kind of have to wait and see, because that hasn't really happened. But I think after all the time they've had between last season and this season, I think he has put that lesson on Carl, and Carl has really understood things, and he wants to still help, but he understands that he can't help in the way he kind of wanted to before in the last season. So I love the episode, and once they cured everybody, or got the antibiotics, I was wondering, all right, this kind of ends the flu arc, in a sense. What's the next story going to be? And we get to see the governor at the end of this episode, and that was great to see, because it's the governor. After last season, that's what everyone was talking about, is when is he gonna come back? Would it be this season? Would it maybe be next season and something else happens? We have the governor. We're gonna get him next week, which is gonna be cool. The trailer that they did was amazing for him too. It's just like him sitting in front of the fire, and it's just voiceovers of other people talking about him, and then like the one zombie just falls in the fire, and then there's the other scene where he's just standing in front of a house and it's just burning. And I was like, that just shows like how crazy this guy is. It just makes him a really great villain. So I'm excited for whatever happens next week. Some things that are still in my head: he may or may not be the guy who fed the rats to the zombies, because once again, the zombies were outside of the gate, so he would have had to have been inside the gate. But at the same time, it still could have been him, because of everything that happened. He might think a lot more than he did last season, where it was kind of like he had this entire town behind him, and he could just say, these guys killed these people for no reason, and he could just go and murder everyone. But now he's either by himself, or he's with a couple of people who left with him last season, unless he like went crazy and killed those guys too. Who knows? But he still could have found a way into the prison, and then like got out just to try to set off everything like that. But we'll have to wait till next week to see. But I'm excited for sure. I'm sure like everyone else is, because it's the governor. And more than anything, I'm excited to see how in the world Michonne's gonna react to seeing the governor, if they actually even cross over, because we could get an entire episode where it's just the governor and what he did between last season and this season, because it was about 6 months, I believe. So they have a lot to go on that they could easily make up an entire episode, or more than that, because it's 6 whole months. But we'll have to wait till next week. But I'm excited for it for sure, and I love this episode. Glad to see nobody got killed off that was a main character. So comment below, let me know what you thought. Favorite part, least favorite part, and I guess the biggest question to ask right now: what do you think is gonna happen next week? Comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.